and welcome to Wanderful, somewhat D&D pod. You're probably looking at the title of this episode that you just downloaded and are listening to and are like, hey, what's going on? And now you're like, hey, Tyler's not doing his normal intro thing. What's going on there? Well, this week we're doing something a little different. We just hit our 2-year anniversary of Wanderful, somewhat D&D podcast.
Whoop, whoop.
It's crazy. We're excited. We've got a lot of fun things in store for this month, including if you follow us on Instagram, which if you don't, this is your time. This is your message to go follow us. We've been promoting. We have new merch that'll be dropping this month. You would have seen on Monday the full designs. We have the Somewhere God Sneezes shirt, which is kind of taking an homage of wolf shirts and whatnot. And we have Home is Where Your Brothers Are, which is designed with a fun, my partner Callie designed a fun, like almost like a cross-stitching kind of design, making it look like it's stitched onto a pillow. So you should be following us on Instagram. But this week, for another fun new thing for you, we have been wanting to do this series for a while. Kyle, unfortunately, is not with us this week. He's passed to the great beyond.
He'll be fine later.
Yes, we have our necromancers on retainer, working on bringing him back.
Yeah.
It's just Matt, Jeremy, and I. But we are here to introduce a brand new series that, you know, will come around every now and then, called Somewhat Critical. This is a series where we're going to be taking a bit of outside look on tabletop RPGs and D&D and games and game design, writing, all those kinds of things. It's going to be more of a discussion-based kind of episode rather than like a story-based one, but they're going to all vary. For instance, we've part of this series we want to try out smaller or less prominent TTRPGs and kind of give our thoughts on them, like those sorts of things. Do either of y'all have anything you want to say? I'm kind of rambling here.
Well, I don't know if it counts as rambling. You're describing the concept of what the fuck can I add in this situation? The point, you're not...
We came up with the idea together. I just am trying to say, like, is there something, like, more succinct?
If you're, like describing a board game to someone, you don't stop halfway through and go, like, I'm sorry, do one of you guys want to talk?
Well, Jeremy might. Jeremy might.
So,
fuck you.
So in this episode... we are going to be focused a little more on the campaign creation sort of element of the thing. And the reason we're doing this is because I have the opportunity ahead of me to introduce a number of friends to the game of D&D or tabletop RPGs in general really soon. My brother and sister-in-law, as well as two of Callie and I's close friends. I'm going to be leading the 5 of them in what will be, for 4 of them, their first ever time playing D&D. Actually, that's not true. I think Kobe played something. Kobe one time played a water genasi that in canon he decided was made out of lean.
I love that.
But I don't think they played much, actually.
I love that.
So I thought it would be fun for us to kind of discuss our thoughts on... I know, Matt, you have a little less experience with DMing, but even as a player of like new games, introducing new people, coming up with story, like preparing for D&D. And then later on in the episode, we will brainstorm some story elements for that game that I will be doing with all of them. We're going to have fun. We're going to be kind of loosey-goosey with this one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I will say, I do think, just as like the general for whenever you're introducing someone to tabletop, the first thing you have to have a very serious, open and honest discussion about the fact that it is terminal. And once you do it, it's just a thing you have to do now for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Because like, I don't want to say it's an addiction.
Yeah.
But I was able to quit heroin, and I'm still playing tabletop.
the thing is, I want to ruin their lives. I want them to walk away from the game.
Perfect.
Yeah. I want them to walk away from the game being like, shit, I got to play another one of these.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe, I kind of view the campaign with them as like at most 3 sessions campaign, because with new players they might be like, you know what, I'm kind of not loving this, because not everybody is the same. Some people just don't like playing D&D. That's fine.
I will say, in my experience, that isn't the thing that happens, because, as I said, it is a virus that is terminal. More often than not, the issue that I've run into is you need to make it to where it's okay for someone to just make a completely different character, because they'll make a character and they'll get a couple sessions in and be like, I actually hate this, and I would like it to be a completely different thing now.
Yeah.
That's another reason why I'm kind of leaning toward a short, mini campaign as an introduction. And if they really like it, they want to make changes, expand it further. Yeah.
Especially with newer players, because with newer players, they don't really know what to expect. So they might pick a character that they think would be fun, but you actually start getting into it and you're just like, fuck, this fucking sucks.
Yeah.
So that definitely makes sense.
I have a question for you guys, and Jeremy especially, just because you have so much experience.
Yep.
You have a lot more experience than both of us
Your
combined.
XP is
probably
real high. You're at level 99
I've infected
Charizard.
a number of. I've infected many.
So one thought I've had with getting ready to prepare this campaign is for at least some of the players, some of the first timers, kind of asking them what kind of play experience they want to get out of it, and then just creating their character for them.
Right.
What do you think about things like that? Because it's so much to grasp for someone who...
So I genuinely, that is something that I've actually done a few times. And the issue I've run into with that... So first of all, I will say, it actually is pretty effective. The only issue that happens is whenever you make the character for them, even if it's the thing that they really wanted, at least conceptually, they're not very attached to it because of the fact that they didn't help create it. And the other issue is the character creation process. The reason it's kind of a slog is because it's getting all of your feats and abilities and all that kind of stuff. But then whenever you get to the game, you have to know that stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where you can make them avoid the slog, but then they're just going to not be, they're then going to end up with a character that vaguely feels how they wanted it to, but they don't understand how it works. Yeah. And they're not very emotionally attached to it because they haven't spent time into it. I honestly think the best thing is to just basically make a very simple character and then just be and if you decide you don't like this, we can play around. We can change it. It's not a big deal.
Do you think it would be better for people or newer players to maybe not start with D&D proper and start with something like a Monster of the Week where the rules are very, very simplified and and it's very simple outcomes, you know what I mean? Where you're getting more into the actual I guess role play of it, where you're not getting so rulesy about it.
I think so. I feel you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's how Tyler, isn't that how you started with TTRPG?
So technically I started with the Star Wars game.
Yeah.
But then we switched over to the Tavern Tales. Is that what it was called?
I think that's what it was called. Yeah.
Which it was a super baseline. It honestly was still in beta when we played it, I think. But it was super bare bones skeleton style, like you're saying, Matt, which I loved.
Yeah.
But also, I actually was just thinking about this in the car home the other day. I was thinking there was some stuff that Mr. Richard did when he was DMing that now, from what I know with DMing, I'm that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. And then I just had the realization yesterday that we were probably playing 4th edition because 5th edition came out in the mid 2010s.
Wait,
so
hold on. I think I
for
missed
Tavern Tales.
No. Whenever we did
about
switch
Star
to
Wars?
D&D.
Oh, gotcha.
No. We did switch to
got it.
D&D. Sorry.
Gotcha.
I didn't explain that well. No, we did switch to D&D at one point, and I was just thinking yesterday, there was some stuff that he did that I don't understand what we were doing, and thinking back, we must have been playing 4th edition, which I've not played since then. If that was because I think 5th edition came out in like 2014.
We
I've
may
only
have
played
been playing
5th.
Pathfinder.
Oh, really?
To be clear, Pathfinder and 4th edition played completely separately, but I don't remember. This is a very internal memory conversation. So, but like
5th edition came out July 2014, so it
Okay.
wouldn't have even been out whenever.
No, it definitely wasn't 5th edition. But a lot of people didn't do 4th edition, like just completely skipped it because it was just it. I don't remember us having issues where like I don't remember us having like power, like daily power, weekly power, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that from my understanding of 4th edition, that's like a big mechanic of it is like all the classes have like that.
Yeah.
And I will say, actually, this is something that we might. One thing we've talked about before is the Pokemon tabletop actually took this mechanic and I think did a good version of it. So, like, if you remember when we tried that, and hopefully when we try it again, a mechanic of the Pokemon is like the strength of moves is like the stronger the move, the less often, and it's like once per day, once per scene, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
My understanding is that's basically how like all the 4th edition classes worked, where like they had stuff like that. Functionally, it streamlined things. The reason people did not like it is because, at least with D&D, it made all of the characters feel the same.
Yeah.
Like, if your cleric is healing a D6 with their powers from God, but then, like, you have a sorcerer who does the same exact thing, but it's flavored differently, but it's still gain a D6 of health. Like, it kind of, like, it makes it where it's like, well, it kind of feels like there's nothing unique about any of this. And it's, and that was a big issue with it.
Yeah. So, I expect tangents to be a normal thing in these kinds of episodes. But so one question I have for y'all is, when starting a new campaign, like as a player, not so much as a DM, we'll get into DMing questions in a bit. But as a player, when starting a new campaign, what is it that, and the answer is a number of things, obviously, but what are some things that kind of help you to feel either connected to the story or like to get into what's happening, like to mentally be into it?
I can start this one off. So I feel like, because I feel like I've only had a couple of introductions to new campaigns. Like I'm not as experienced as like Jeremy would be, but like from my experience, knowing the world around and like my best character building experience came from Road to Redemption, because we kind of not only, I wouldn't even say that it was because we actually helped build it, but I think it was just because we understood it, because we did help build it.
Yeah.
So because we understood everything about the world, like it kind of helped play a part into like, okay, this is why my character is like this, not just, oh, I want to make this guy who punches a lot of people, like Carve, but but like I just feel like I was able to connect a lot more to the world around with that character. So I feel like that's, for me, the best way is like just really diving deep into the world building aspect of it.
That's so interesting. Obviously, this goes without saying, we all loved doing the world building game. The what was it called? Oh my god! I need to look it up.
Tears of the Kingdom.
Seconds to Mars.
Breath of the Wild.
Ocarina
Twilight Princess. Majora's Mask.
Oh. Link's Awakening.
Fuck, Link's Awakening. Got me that one. The fucking
The
Sky
Four
one.
Swords. The
Sky
Skyward
one.
Sword.
Skyward
So
Sword.
great.
Fuck.
I'm almost there.
What was the one?
Phantom Hourglass.
Was that the one where he could turn himself into a 2D image?
Oh,
that
A
was
Link Between Worlds.
Or
A Link Between Worlds. All right.
Or a link to the Past.
No, I think it was a Link.
Well,
Fuck,
I'm just
I don't
saying another one.
That was also the one that was multiplayer, wasn't
The
it?
ground itself.
The ground itself.
The ground itself.
So when
Got it.
that was one thing, like when we
First
played the ground
try.
itself by Everest
Sorry,
Pipkin.
I was thinking of Mario games. My bad.
Oh yeah, Mario. I loved that experience, and I totally agree. I felt so easily connected to the world we were creating because it was so collaborative. But I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you think that a game like that is too much?
That's a bad starter game.
Oh, definitely
Yeah.
bad for.
I thought so too. I just was asking.
But the concept I fully agree with, which is, and it's something that my wife did in the game we're running for her teacher friends. I'm sorry, our teacher friends. I don't know why I'm like isolating myself. I think they like me. I'm pretty sure. But was she made sure that like they got to add a piece to the world she made. So like she made this whole world, and then like, so like one of the people want it to be like an orc from like a tribe, like how they have in like Skyrim and stuff, how they're like kind of these like little regimented tribes, but they're not like, they're like well established kind of things. And that wasn't in the world originally. So he incorporated it in so that he could have that. And like that kind of thing, by letting players like add a piece, it adds a lot of that investment feeling that you get. That being said, the full like everyone cooperatively working together with the world, I think is awesome. I just think in my head, at least, it seems like it would be a bit overwhelming for someone who, because a big part of the transition is just, oh, okay, I have to be creative. Okay. And like, that's just not, it's really hard because of the concept of you're playing a game, but also you're making a lot of bullshit up as part of the game it's a transition that is not easy for people to make. And so like kind of dipping their toes in a little bit there is a great way to like,
I feel like it's important for like DMs that are bringing in new players too, like, because like a new player doesn't really know what to expect, so like they don't know what to think about. So I think it's really important for DMs to be able to like have a conversation or send out a list of questions and, you know, be like, hey, what kind of like person is this guy gonna be? Like, where do you think he would be from? Like like simple questions like that. Like just like what type of, I don't want to say background, that's too general, but like kind of piecing together questions that can kind of help lead into character creation. I feel like that's very important too, especially with newer players.
Well, that poses a great question. And honestly, I would like to extend this also to the audience. If you have like good tips and stuff or thoughts on these kinds of things, shoot us a email message or something, like, because like this is all, everyone has different like philosophies for how they run games and how they interact with these sorts of things. That brings up a good question that I want to ask y'all. Do y'all have any good like framing questions that helps new players wrap their head around the idea of creating their character? Kind of like you kind of brought up, like not just being like, what kind of guy do you want to play? Like, do you have any like good ideas for like questions to help them get in the mindset of like, just like a broad example, like, okay, your guy witnesses someone robbing a bank. How does he personally react to that? Like,
that's
is
a
he
great
someone who wants to get in the fray?
That's
is
a very
he someone
good
that
question.
wants to call the police or hot? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like people probably, I feel like those kinds of questions are probably more effective than just
definitely.
like, what kind of guy do you want to play?
Yeah, definitely.
Because I know it's a stereotype. When I first started, I remember being overwhelmed by the idea of, what do you mean I could do anything? Like,
yes, definitely. Like, and that was a great example. Like putting in like scenarios, like, okay, so you're walking in a bar and you see like a whole bunch of people at the bar, like kind of overcrowding. Where do you go? Like questions like that, like kind of starts to get the player to think about those types of things. So
I will say, I think this is kind of just jumping off of this as the best thing, and I'm not sure how easy this would be to kind of push across to new players, but the best way to have fun as a player is to be completely willing to whatever your original concept was, to let it fall if the way the story is going doesn't work with that.
Yeah.
Like there's been so many situations where like, oh, I'm making a serious character. Oh, there's a lot of goofy shit, and he's rolled like critical ones like 8 times in a row. Like he can't be like, he dropped his sword and then stabbed himself. Like he's like, he can't be a serious character. Like I just have to like leaning in and going with the flow of like what happens. Cause I've seen a lot of people have lost interest because of the fact that they have the idea of the character they want to play and they get into the world thinking it's going to perfectly sync up, but then it just keeps rubbing against, and there ends up being like this conflict. And it's not like anyone's fault. No one did anything wrong in creation or world building or anything. It's just sometimes like the dice just have your character behave differently from how they should behave. Like a great example is the suave dude we did for like that bank robbery thing where I was supposed to be playing this charismatic person.
Yeah.
I'm not charismatic and I'm bad at words and stuff. So every time I had him talk, he ended up sounding just creepy.
An asshole?
Like like a creepy asshole. Like just like he's just gross. And then like and then after like a couple of times of that, I was like, you know what? Let's just lean into him being really gross. And like his charisma is entirely just because he happens to be attractive, but also he's a fucking gross person and you still don't want to be around him.
Yeah.
Well, it also it kind of reminds me of like, to bring an analogy to like sitcoms and TV, in that writers say all the time that characters kind of gain a life of their own. Like as much as you have intentions for your character, they become their own thing and sort of write themselves, in that their decisions like become clear as they become more fully developed. Like, and a perfect example of a bad job at this is always Ted in How I Met Your Mother. I adore How I Met Your Mother. Don't get me wrong. But the creators refused to see that Ted had changed, Barney had changed, these sorts of things. And they were so stuck to their guns. Ted was going to end up with Robin. They already filmed it in season 1. Like, they decided to stick to their guns instead of acknowledging that the characters aren't what they had intended at the beginning. That's just the way it goes when writing long term, you know? And I think that translates pretty directly to what you're saying, Jeremy. Yeah,
no. It's just, it's a big thing where like, that is a great, like, PSA that I wish and to be clear, I hadn't done this before, but it's something that I should probably start doing with newer players. It's just like, we're going to come up with a cool concept for your character. Let it change. Also, no brooding, edgy corner characters. That's just a general, no, there's no character. Every time I've had new players, like half of the players try to make a brooding character to hang out in the corner, and there's literally, I had one game where there were 4 players and 3 of them were dark brooding. So I was just like, the 3 of the 4 corners of every tavern were already occupied by these fuckers brooding in the corner, and it made everything like it. That, as you can imagine, that campaign collapsed very quickly, because whenever you make a bunch of characters who don't work well in groups, it kind of fucks up a group game.
So do you have any like fun ideas or ways to get around that problem or to solve that problem?
So
other than start over or quit?
So honestly, the only thing that I have like that's been effective is if I'm just straight up with them to start like at character creation, just like, listen, don't make a corner character. Don't make an edgy character. Like, you can have edge, but everyone, for whatever reason, at least in my experience, a lot of people like their first character to be that dark brooding thing. And I do think it's somewhat from a just like, that's much easier to get into a game with because those characters are inherently kind of being brought along with the story rather than leading it.
That's
and so
it
makes it easier. So it's not something where it's like it's incomprehensible why they're doing it. It's just a thing where it's an easy trap to fall into that it's not an effective character for
Group
having
play.
a game where it's group. I will say the one thing, if you're in that situation where like it's already too late, you've got a bunch of characters who are edgy characters who don't work well together, take all their shit. And I mean that literally. Like, have the story, take all their shit. Because the way you get a bunch of characters who don't like to work together in a group is like robbing them, making it to where they're all pissed off at someone specifically. It is the thing that always gets the brooding characters like, oh, why are these edgelords working together? Well, because Steve over there took all of their magic items and won't give them back because he's a dick.
I love
and it's
that.
like, that works. I will say, make sure you don't, I highly recommend don't take it away in a permanent way because that ends up kind of like disheartening the characters because like they just started and it's like, so all this stuff I just got is now just gone forever.
Yeah.
And it's like, it can end up being, so like take it away, but make it still exist. And that one guy, Steve over there has it and he's a dickhead.
That's a great idea.
Hear me out. A dark brooding corner character. They're a warlock. Their patron forces them to go do stuff.
Yeah, that's
That
also
sounds like
very
a-
fun.
You mean my mom?
Yeah. You don't make me do stuff. That's so funny.
I think
Matt,
feel
you're
like
a dark brooding kind of guy.
I very much am. God damn, I am. But I feel like I was able to, because with Eldritch, I was able, or
Eldrick?
Eldritch,
Yeah.
Eldritch Blast, goddamn.
Yeah.
With Eldritch, I feel like I was able to make that type of character, but still make him where like he was
But
able
I don't think he
to-
was like brooding. I think
Definitely
he
not
was
brooding,
like,
but-
he was like haunted.
Yes,
You know,
I
like-
feel like
Yes,
he was more. I'm trying to think of the word. I feel like he was more like. God, I just cannot think of the word right now. Like
He was like
regressed
Aragorn.
from a little bit, like just like
Like
away.
he's wandering because he's sad.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
But like
That's
he's
an
getting
important-
shit done.
That's
Yes.
an important distinction. Like there's the corner character who's in the corner because society just doesn't get them. And then there's the corner character who's in the corner because nobody's hanging out with me
Yeah,
and I feel
and
like it's my fault.
My friend turned into a bad guy.
Yeah. My girlfriend's dad won't let me marry her because I'm a human.
Because I'm a human.
That's a they're both
Or
in
whatever
the
he
corner.
is.
They're both in the corner, but the two
Yeah.
take the call to action much differently.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
This is my moment to prove I'm not a piece of shit.
yeah,
Yeah.
And that
So,
works
yeah.
way better.
yeah. I mean, honestly, like even just having like a dynamic reason to be a brooding character is so much more interesting. Like I feel like if it's just like, oh man, I want to be a brooding character and like I want to be in the corner, I want to be the cool guy, like, you know, hey, you want a cigarette, you know? Like
Yeah.
like
I'm
I feel
in the
like
corner because I'm selling drugs.
yeah, having a story
Want
to
to buy a sundial?
Sundial, goddamn.
Yeah.
But
Sorry, Hercules reference.
have a connection to why, you know, why that character would be brooding. Even that helps out a lot, I feel like.
Yeah.
Not just like,
So-
oh, he's brooding because he's cool.
Yeah. So to get into the DM side of it / writing side of it, do y'all have any like fun ideas for like other than like we talked about like other than like we talked about like with giving them or allowing them to add something to the world to make them feel connected, is there anything like with, you know, getting into session 1 or session 0 or whatever that you think like works really well for like setting up everything? Like some people I've seen on I've been on D&D TikTok for a while, you know, and I've seen a lot of people talk about like, I saw one guy talk about this really interesting thing he did where he let them create their character sheets and then he gave them like level 15 character sheets or something like that as well, and he basically played like an open cutscene with them, like that set up the dungeon and the big bad and stuff, like things like that. Do y'all have any like thoughts on like opening up a story, opening up a campaign, or something like that?
Just to another thing that I haven't used yet, but I do think it's a very good concept that I'd like to potentially play around with, is also on D&D TikTok. You should just check that out. But anyway, actually don't get on TikTok.
There's lots of great creators.
Once you download it,
ignore
you'll
TikTok. Otherwise, D&D TikTok, I see so much good stuff. Like 90% of my TikTok has been D&D and Baldur's Gate content.
But so the ideal was like every character you make gets one I know a guy. Where
basically, I think I might have seen this.
Where it's basically just like, you know, at some point in the story, there's going to be a problem, and you are allowed one time to be like, my character actually knows a guy who might be able to help with this kind of thing.
Got you. That's interesting.
We need to find this magic item. Oh, my guy actually knows a wizard who might be able to help us track it down. You get one thing like that, and like,
it kind of helps start building those connections too.
Yeah. And it also, the concept at least is it'll also like get them engaged, where like they're going to be much more interested in the story whenever they know, I only get to do this once. Is this the right moment to do it? Like how
the dilemma.
It makes them, hopefully it'll make the players more engaged with problem solving, because they don't want to use this card unless they have to. So they're like, okay, I need to, how do we solve this?
Can we get through this without me having to do that? Yeah, exactly.
Just imagine a campaign where like all of the characters get to like use their like, I know a guy on the final boss.
I mean, y'all have had many like effectively many I know a guy cards on Wanderful. What with the mystery nut, the hourglass, like y'all have things like that that like I am so interested to see what happens with the hourglass, for instance. You know, if I can, because we're not here.
I haven't used it yet is because there
hasn't been something big enough for it.
One, there hasn't been something big enough. Two, I have barely referenced it ever, because my hope is that everyone forgets I have it, so it can be a big like. I get it is too powerful. I will never forget you have that. I need you to know that. It's not gonna slip past me. Well, it could slip past me in the sense of you could use it on something I never would have thought you would have used it on. Because like I could absolutely see you just doing something really stupid and being like, that was a dumb mistake to use it for this. I will say
lots of emotional stakes with something like that.
I feel like, just as a very side tangent thing, I feel like Alandi, more than any of the other characters, has had the most like, I figured out a way to break what Tyler's trying to do with something. The fucking really cool rock has broken so many situations.
Honestly, I forget about that rock so goddamn much. And
really
the thing is, though,
the man behind the curtain power. Oh my god!
Yeah, that one has screwed me once or twice. Here's the thing, though. The thing I love about magic items and stuff. Obviously, I know in D&D, like magic items are to be used sparingly because they can become so overpowered. They add such an incredible element of fun. Like, and obviously here's the thing. If you're listening 2 years into this podcast, like, you know this by now, but the only thing I care about is us having a good time and telling a fun story. Like, I could give two shits about the rules of D&D. We honestly like have already talked about scrapping D&D and playing a different game in campaign 2. Like I have, like, because that's not ultimately important. Like what's important is, and what's important with these kinds of games in general is the connection with other people, telling stories and just having a good time. Like the reason we do this is because the four of us like playing D&D and we've been friends for like 15 years. Like that's so much more important than like the hard and fast like rules of things, like I started giving you like shopping episodes and the movies and all of that because I knew those things are exciting. Like even though you didn't use the bigger knife, like it was still exciting to hear like, oh, that's such a fun idea. Like, like
Yeah.
And it presents so many new opportunities for creative problem solving and things like that. Yeah.
And just to, as a kind of just a bouncing off, because while we're talking about like, because I feel like this kind of starter episode to this new series,
Yeah,
in part is us kind of trying to give D&D like just tabletop wisdom in general.
yeah,
I think the situation that happened the first time I think it was the first time we used a really cool rock to just skip the mimic room is a perfect example of like, because Tyler, it was beautiful. It's a very fun concept.
The idea was good, bad execution on my part.
And listen, as a man who made a maze within a maze one time,
yep.
I thought the concept was fun, and then we did it, and I was like, this is actually a fucking slog.
Listen, here's another writing tip. You're not always going to do great. Like, that episode is so good if you take out the mimics, or if you cut down the mimic stuff.
Yeah.
I hate that you have to skip the mimic stuff to get to the room of sacrifice where Alandi dives. Like, that scene is so good.
Yeah.
And I hate that I ruined that episode.
No,
I think about going back and editing out and be like, go to YouTube if you want to listen to the full thing of this.
I will say, I think it's one of those things where I think, granted, I wish I would have thought of it sooner, but like part of the fun of that episode, specifically for me at least, is the fact that Alandi just kept getting bitten by shit. And it was funny. And it wouldn't have been funny if it weren't for the fact that like it just kept happening. Now, granted,
I have to imagine it's funny that we were getting annoyed at it taking so long too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But like the fact that like, are mimics gonna be affected by the really cool walk? I don't know. Like, man, but like, and also
it's a good idea.
Would it have worked? Like, does the
rule of cool is where I live?
Well, yeah. I that's why I think as a DM, stepping back and being like, are the rules worth the like? It's killing the fun. This is a half good. This is a half baked idea that will solve the problem and be entertaining. So yeah, sure.
Yeah.
The really cool rock
Honestly,
works.
There's so many things.
Your jar, sure, it can make gasoline. Fuck it, why not?
There's so many things I look back on in this podcast, especially because I just re-listened. And I think like, man, why did I do that? Or like, I had a character live on like 3 health. I should have just let him kill it there.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many little things like that are podcasting adds such an interesting dynamic to D&D in that like we are in and it helps that we're doing this for us and for fun. We're not making money and there's not a lot of pressure on us right now. Whereas like there is a interesting dynamic, especially as the DM, of I don't want to be wasting our audience's time for listening. And there are like that moment is a perfect example of where I was like, God, what are we doing here? Like, not only am I wasting y'all's time, I'm wasting our audience's time, you know, and it's very nice that our audience is so small that I don't feel any real pressure. Like, I do feel a lot of pressure. Don't get me wrong.
Don't get
like,
bigger.
My goal is to put out a good product, and I think we do. But it's really interesting from a logistical standpoint as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so that being said, we're 43 minutes in.
God.
Let's get into the next section.
Yes.
So, Matt and Jeremy.
Yes.
Just to reset it up, I am going to be DMing a campaign for Callie's brother and sister, one of her brothers and her sister, and 2 of our other friends, as well as Callie. It is 4 new people, really 3 new people. Kobe's technically played, but not really. And Callie's played a few times. She's listened to all the podcasts, Adventure Zone. Callie's very familiar with how D&D works. She played with us, you know, when we played the Monster of the Week back in the day. We've played some one-offs with some friends before. I'm not worried about her. I want to create a compelling... I feel like at max like 3 or 4 session, and they aren't recorded, so they can be longer than an hour. So really, it could be like a 2 or 3 session campaign that is not only welcoming to new players, but also to people who aren't super into fantasy. Not that they're not into fantasy, but Callie's sister, and I don't know Walker's wife very personally, but I like, let's say that like the extent of their fantasy knowledge is like they watched Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
You know, like maybe they watched Game of Thrones just because everyone did. I mean, I didn't, but you know, you get my point. So like, I want us to brainstorm some story hooks, some settings. It doesn't need to be hard fantasy. Like one of the main ideas I've had is kind of like riffing on so Dimension 20 did y'all Jeremy, did you ever listen to any of Tiny Heist?
Yes.
So I feel like that feels very welcoming to like people who aren't huge on fantasy doing something like that, and I could easily like fake the rules of D&D, like the character creation, to do something like that, something that feels more you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Feels more I can't think of the word. My brain isn't working.
Natural.
Accessible.
Okay.
Accessible. So definitely, and I think I'm trying to remember the beginning of Tiny Heist, but either way, I definitely think a big thing, and it's a lesson I have had to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
Is especially with new players, make the initial task extremely clear. Like
Okay.
they're already learning, they're getting into a new thing, they're having to learn all these new systems. Don't on top of that be like, and anyway, what are you doing? You're in town. Good morning.
Yeah.
Like make what is like, make the problem clear, make the solution clear, honestly.
Yeah.
Because they're learning how to interact with the world. So don't like, not that it can't open up later, but like, and I think they did this with
throw
Tiny
them
Heist.
into the lurch.
Yeah. Like, and I think they did this with Tiny Heist, but like, it was very clear, like, we're doing a heist. Like that's the thing is a heist. So get into the mind of this is going to be a heist.
I think even so, heist, I could see where like that could potentially go a little sideways, just because like only because there are so many. Yeah. But the
we tried a heist and we're all experienced, and it wasn't a heist.
Oh yeah. But I think something where
no
like
janitor's closets.
I think something where it's like you're in a town, there's a job board, all the characters are coming in on this like job posting. Yeah. Something like that where it's like, oh, the town needs help like doing a thing, and like it's very clear like this is where you go. This is how to do it. Talk to this person for some extra like, you know, they've had experience do it.
And Matt went to the Shadow Realm on the word experience.
Matt died.
So my power went out.
Oh! Yikes.
Yeah, I literally was mid-sentence and my power just went out. My recording's still going though, so.
Your recording's still going? Hey, this is fun. Let's get moving.
So basically, essentially, I was talking about like, so essentially, I think it's important to have a task that's completely laid out, especially for brand spanking new, like, players who have very little experience with, like, fantasy in general. Have something that it ties it to a location. They don't have to travel very far. There's a clear reward for each character as to why they would want to do it. It might not even be like that they want the money. It might just be like, oh, like I live here and I want to make sure that like we're not dead in like an hour or two, you know? So like having those clear ties, I think helps bring in more variety of characters. It gives them a clear task. And then along the way, they won't know it, but you can add in some twists. So, and you could do it slowly too. So where it's like, okay, so they think they're going to do this, but it actually turns out that it's this, you know, and that's kind of like adding in that creative aspect where like they can really start to think about, okay, well, what would my character do in this situation? You know, I think that's a very easy way to bring in like very brand new characters and players.
Yeah. And I also think like moral dilemmas, this is going to sound very toxic out of context. Moral dilemmas are fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Well, it's causing. I feel like moral dilemmas are really great in that they cause not only does it cause you to think about how you feel about it. If they're able to get into their character, it's forcing them to think not only about themselves but also like, yeah, but does this guy care about that? Like, but obviously that comes after they're able to get into their character, which some people naturally have an easier time than others. Like, I fully expect like Walker, who's one of the guys that's going to be doing the campaign, he seems like the kind of guy who's like going to pop right into his character and have a good time, even though he's never played. So here is what I'm thinking, what my current thought is for the campaign. I want y'all to give me honest thoughts as to what doesn't work. Or if you have good ideas for something for me to put in this, like I want our listeners to fully just get a look into each of our creative processes, how we think of these kinds of things.
About it.
So for context, like I said, Maggie and Hannah are the two that I feel like I have to win over. They're not that they're like, they both have expressed individual interest in playing, but they're the two I know the least about. I know Maggie is interested. She loved Callie is her sister, obviously. Callie says that she loves like imaginative play, like that's something that she really gets. So I feel like she'll love it, but I have to win her over because that's just the nature of the beast. So I was thinking of taking a page from Tiny Heist's book and basically setting the campaign. Well, so here's the hook that I had in my mind while I was driving yesterday, just thinking about it. We have all of them as like little kids. Maybe they're like 8 to 10 years old, living in a neighborhood in southern Louisiana, just since that's where we're from. And each of them, or they're all together exploring the swamp in something like that. And they come across this weird animal that is some sort of magical being in disguise. And this magical being magically turns them all into something of their choice, some sort of animal or creature or thing. Like you could, like, I'm going to present to them like things that, or I would, if y'all like this idea, like present to them things that exist in a swamp, like a mushroom guy, or you could be a possum or a turtle. And like, kind of, I feel like I could easily link each of these things to a D&D race, like as far as like character building wise, like a raccoon could easily be like a barbarian, you know, like, or like a cat could be a rogue, or you know what I'm getting at. I could pretty easily fudge the stats to fit things like that. And those creatures feel more, obviously are more familiar because they're real, but those things kind of feel like, I'm not suddenly, for someone who's not huge into fantasy, I'm not suddenly being like goblins and orcs and high elves and wood elves. And you know what I mean? Like, that is kind of my thought. What do y'all think about doing something like that?
That's a pretty good idea, especially since like there's a certain personality to those like creatures. So like, you know, a cat might be a little more like reserved, like, you know, very like maybe pretentious, you know, and we kind of see that in like a good example is like you speak with animals spell, like when anytime you talk to like an animal in like Baldur's Gate or something, and it's like each like animal has a different personality, and like it's kind of like just from their like physical, like how they react, you know. So I think that's a great idea, honestly.
I think I really like this. I think what you should do, because this will also minimize the character creation, I think you should tell them they get to pick the animal. You are going to pick the powers. So they get to pick, like, or not just animal, like you said, it could be mushroom.
Yeah.
They get to pick the thing. Then you're going to, because I think the way this idea, at least to me, works the best is they touch these creature or they touch this creature, whatever the explosion, doesn't matter necessarily the exact the Power
Logistically,
Rangers
however it
moment
happens.
where they get their
God,
power
yes.
cuffs or whatever.
They have to
Then-
morph, by the way, to use their powers.
And they can make a Megazord and anyway,
God, yes.
they should like start to basically, I feel like it would work best if like they start to show signs after they get back, like nothing's going on, and then like, oh, I sprouted a mushroom on my shoulder, and like they basically like, and then the campaign,
So almost like a Goosebumps book style.
yeah, like that.
Like
I
I'm
think-
getting hairy. I'm getting hair in places I don't
that's
recognize,
perfect.
and then I'm a dog tomorrow.
and it turns out you were a dog the whole time. Best twist of
Yeah.
any book ever.
God, let's go. Let's do some animal
He was a dog
shit.
afraid of dogs, and he was hiding in a tree at the beginning, which doesn't make sense if he was a dog, but he's fine. Don't worry about it. Anyway, like have the. I think that would be good because then you also have the clear like, oh, what is their goal? To go find that weird magic thing to make this stop happening.
Yeah.
But like, because then you can also like you can bump them up as needed, where like you're giving them here's a better mushroom power, a better mushroom power, kind of thing.
So here's what I'm thinking as far as like the campaign goal.
Okay.
And maybe y'all can help me figure out if this works, if there's a good way to approach something, those kinds of things. My thought is, and really this is just my first thought, I haven't put any deep thought into it, so be as critical as you want. My thought is they are turned into these creatures. They kind of discover that as these creatures, they're able to kind of recognize the swamp as this whole like civilization as it is really just, we don't recognize it as such, obviously, as people. Because ecosystems really often.
Oh, I think I
go
missed.
ahead.
Just to briefly pause. I think I misunderstood. You're saying they go and then
They're
they touch-
8-year-olds
and
in
then
the real world, and
Yes.
they turn into magically.
But they're like they're not. Oh, I'm an 8-year-old and I'm starting to get frog powers. I'm an 8-year-old now. I'm a frog in the swamp, and I don't know what.
Yeah.
Got it.
Sorry,
That's very
yes,
fun.
yes.
Yes.
I like that too. I do like
Yeah,
that. That was
like
I
they're
misunderstood.
suddenly a part of this civilization.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my thought,
They got Fern Gullied.
for some reason, I
They
don't.
got-
Yeah,
Is
honestly,
that Ferngully?
I don't know.
Kinda.
I don't know why. This is where what my brain wants to do is this civilization. They kind of show up here. They talk. I'm gonna let them explore, talk to some people, that whole biz, and I think it would be fun. I don't know why this is the story my brain wants to do, but the leader / president, whoever of this civilization, gets assassinated.
Oh, fuck.
And
God
and
damn.
juxtapose the cutesy animal swamp aesthetic with political turmoil
Oh my god.
and have them need to
So
like
the Princess Frog meets World War One. I like it.
well honestly like I kind of and I really want to, a big part of what I want to do to win over all these players is like over prep a little. Like I want to draw their characters. I want to like get it really into a lot of those kinds of things. And I kind of picture the big bad being this weird magical frog that just floats around, but like I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
God.
What-
Can
what
you
do y'all
please
think?
make
Do you
his
think-
like legs like really
Go ahead.
long and like floating
I was picturing
around?
them long and floppy. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't
Yeah.
use them.
Yes, I love it. I think
There's
I
something
really like that
discoverable about a
idea.
frog that doesn't hop.
I'm a little
Yeah.
jealous that we can't play that, but
Honestly,
Well-
it started off as an idea for a one shot for us, but I just haven't thought
honestly,
about it since.
I think we kind of did a little bit with the Halloween. That was like
true.
those monsters.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking it. That was fun then too.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
It was
Yeah.
a little different, but yeah.
true. So when it comes to Jeremy, I would love your thoughts on this, especially as someone who's DM'd a bunch as well.
Mhm. I'm King
Something
Nerd, yes.
Yeah. Something I feel like I always struggle with is figuring out how to handle short-term mysteries.
Yes.
It's easy to handle long-term mysteries, I feel like, especially on our show.
Mhm.
Like if I pose something as like vague and mysterious in one episode, knowing I won't deal with it for another 15, it's easy to just like casually mention it again. So y'all are like, yeah, what was that about? Like, that's easy. If we're talking like 2-3 sessions of the president just got assassinated, what do we do about that?
Right.
Do you have any thoughts on those sorts of storytelling, DM storytelling elements?
So at least in my opinion, and you guys are the ones actually going through Magic Manor right now. I'm not sure how, I think
which is a big mystery right now.
So the way I have that set up, and it seems to be engaged, it seems to really have you guys engaged, is it's a bunch of tiny little mysteries that each like are like you get the answer and then you're like, okay, well, what?
That's not helpful yet.
Like, so like, whenever,
like the bathroom and like the, like all of the little things you're saying.
Why are the what's going on? Why is all the food sending people to the bathroom? Why, why does it seem like the waiters are like in this hive mind? Like, what's the point of the hive mind thing? Like, why is this one waiter not? Like, why is he just like a child that's also there? Like, what's up with like?
So like presenting like little pieces of mysteries for you to solve. That
yes, and
will all come together at the end.
Where like you get basically do Lost, but not the end of Lost. Do the,
The like, good part of Lost.
The good parts of Lost. I will say, at least with me, I came up with the big mystery first, which I think Lost was kind of against that kind of concept. Where they just kind of made
the opposite of How I Met Your Mother.
They made a bunch of bullshit, and they were like, "Well, now we have to connect it all." Don't do that.
That's purgatory.
I made the big concept first, and then I was like, "Let's make a bunch of little mysteries that kind of." And you can have some stuff that isn't even like they're mysteries that like help get them to the big thing.
Yeah.
But I will say, in that situation, that is specifically for like that, where it is a mystery game by like necessity.
Yeah.
But you can take those individual mysteries and like kind of just pull them out. Kind of a good example of like just a game that does this really well is just this is the first time we're referencing it this episode, but Legend of Zelda does it really well. Where like there's just like a bunch of puzzles that like help you advance, but like sometimes they like add up to something later, but sometimes they're just like, yeah, it's just a little thing, and here's a little reward.
Sometimes you gotta go back.
I don't know.
Sometimes you gotta like remember things and go back.
Not if you're fucking doing walkthroughs.
Oh god.
I think a good word out of what you just said, especially, is the reward part of that. Is I think a big thing, which I feel like in our show we do generally well. Or I do generally well. I think it totally depends because we're also invested, so it's a little different. But I think making sure that there is tangible reward, even if it's just a like dopamine hit of like, hell yeah, we did that kind of, you know, like I feel like that is such a big thing in tabletop that keeps you coming back, is the feeling of like, fuck, that was, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Any moment where you see a player like really start to engage, even if it doesn't necessarily work, bend it a little bit to where it does work. Cause you never want to
discourage that.
You never want to discourage creative thinking or just any kind of engagement stuff. Like, those moments, especially with new players, that is key. Cause like a veteran player, like you can tell them to fuck off every now and again. It's fine. Yeah. But like with a newer player, they're just getting like, that is their moment that could potentially be their deal breaker moment where like, if you reward that moment, then they're going to be hooked for life. If you like tell them, no, that's dumb, they're done. They're done. They try, like that was their moment to engage and you stepped on it. And especially with something where it's like it can really fuck you if you're doing like a long-term campaign, but especially for something where it is a short campaign by necessity, let it go sideways. It's fine. Like if they're engaged with it and it ends up going sideways, that's fine. Your next one, you can be like, this one's gonna be a little bit more structured, so y'all aren't gonna be able to do as much shenanigan. But like now they're into it already.
Yeah.
So do you think then if
Like, if they want to help assassinate the next president, like, let them.
so do you think that because that's an interesting thought that I think I agree with while I'm thinking about it. Do you think that failing your first campaign and like if everyone died that it would feel obviously if it is handled appropriately and respectfully to their time and effort and stuff, do you think that that can feel like similarly rewarding? Or
I think as long as it flows,
as long as it feels
I think-
natural and not forced?
yeah, like yes, very much so. Because like if your player is like, I've had one of my favorite little moments where like I had someone who was like playing a Minotaur and they were used to playing in a campaign where like the DM basically like if they had an idea, he would like just let them go with it. And it was very fun and it made a lot of big scenes, but it also ended up kind of breaking the like, because it made it to where there was no challenge. And so you lost engagement from the other end where it's like, if there's no real problems, then there's no real solutions. Then what am I even doing, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so like, basically this person, they were still new player, but it was this moment where they were trying to sneak in and they were Minotaur, super strong. And they were like, all right, I would like to pry the floorboards up so I can sneak under, which is super great. And it's very fun, but it was in the middle of the night. And the whole point was it was a stealth operation. So I was just like, if you as a person can describe to me how to rip up wooden floorboards without making sound, I will.
And so
allow
much
it.
so that a Minotaur can fit
Yeah.
underneath, like
Yes,
through it and
enough
underneath
to
the
allow
floor.
But the shenanigans that came from that, we ended up with a Minotaur-shaped hole in a fence where they had to run away, and it was a perfect Minotaur-shaped hole in the fence.
It reminds me
We
of
love
a little guy. It reminds me of a little guy being like, "What about a janitor's closet?"
It was great. It was so good.
You never
God.
knew. You never know what's gonna connect with people. What's gonna?
You never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like,
Bro,
and
that
it
shit
was
was
it
so
was the
helpful.
funniest thing where it was the funniest
True.
thing where as soon as I said that, the player went, "Oh yeah, that's fair." Like it was that moment of like, as long as if you're trying to push back, as long as you frame it in like not like I'm not letting you do this for no reason. It is like, I'm cool with this if you can explain to me person to person how this would work mechanically.
How?
Yeah.
And
Just how?
if they give an answer, even if it's like a half baked answer, if they give some kind of thing, then go with it. Sure. Like but like if it's one of those things where it's just fully untenable, then it's like, well,
Yeah.
well, like, yeah.
Cool.
God, that's so.
You know
good.
what? So
Now,
this is
I think
our.
we successfully dodged helping you make this first session pretty well.
No, hey, this was great.
We've said a lot of
I
platitudes
wasn't.
and bullshit.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I wasn't sure how this episode was going to go.
Mhm.
I just wanted to kind of write it out. I think that this episode was much heavier on the beginner advice and thoughts on new campaigns than the brainstorming, quote unquote, ended up being. But I like that a lot. So
When is your
I
first
just want to
session,
say,
by the way?
haven't said it yet.
Ooh.
I was waiting till the new year to kind of figure this stuff out. Now that we've done this, I'm probably going to text them soon and be like, let me know what you're thinking as far as, character or an animal or a creature or something swamp related that, strikes you. But so for the audience, if you're still listening, this series will obviously won't be like an every week kind of thing because the focus is obviously Wanderful proper and Road to Redemption. I feel like those are the two big the big things that we do. We will return shortly with Wanderful proper. However, we have some more special stuff for you this month. we have a short series being DM'd by our own Jeremy, as he's alluded to in this episode.
Oh yeah, bleep out some of those spoilers. I didn't even think
No,
of
it's
that.
okay. I if there's anything important, I will probably. This is going to
Yeah.
come out on Wednesday.
Got it.
We will be. Jeremy will be leading a short series for us through this month. And sometime in February, we will be returning to Wanderful proper for a pretty big climactic, potentially the end of season 3. I'm a little torn on if I want to end season 3. Kyle and I have been we're talking a lot on this holiday vacation. I think we're going to be ending season 3 here soon.
Ooh.
And go back to Road to Redemption for a little bit. Kyle's been doing some writing.
I love it.
I know, same. I'm so excited to get back into all that. But we have a lot of heavy, wonderful stuff coming up soon with your chase after
Can't wait to
the
fuck it up.
silver-faced man.
Uh-huh.
I'm so excited to see what
God, I'm gonna
happens.
Catch this fucker.
Thank you
Brad
all
Pitt
for
better get back
listening. Brad Pitt is on his way.
Let's
Brad
go.
is on his way.
Let's go, Brad.
Once upon a time in Hollywood, more like once upon a time in the Shell place.
Let's go.
Anyway, we love you. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you two's help thinking through a lot of these kinds of topics. I wrote a bunch of notes. This was great. Somewhat critical. Will return. If you have any TTRPGs that you want us to examine, play, kind of the way, sorry, I know I'm signing off, but kind of the way we view this series working in the future is kind of picking a TTRPG, learning the rules, talking about it kind of on air, playing a one-off, and then talking about our thoughts.
Yeah.
So this series in the future, unless we do more episodes like this, that's just kind of behind the scenes. Whenever we talk about new TTRPGs, they will probably be like 3 or 4 episode series. But you know, we got some time before that happens. Thank you so much for listening. This has been wonderful. A somewhat D&D podcast.
It was Legend of Zelda I was thinking of.
Closed on Blor's Day.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
That's our
Closed on
ad.
Blor's days.
Closed on Blor's Day. God.
I tried to blow it out almost.
So many R's in that commercial.
My
God
bad.
Damn.
My favorite bit of that. My favorite bit of recording those commercials, which I'll put this as the tag at the end of the episode. I told Kyle this, but I didn't tell you, Jeremy, is Matt and I were recording, and he was looking at the script, and he kept really struggling with the word brew, which fair. And your accent. In Carveth's accent, brew is difficult. And he's like, I just can't do it. We might need to change this word. And I was like, what do you mean we need to change this word? The Bermuda Triangle, the thing we're promoting?
Oh my God.
Like, we can't change that word. And he's like, well, how do we even come up with this? I'm like, you said it. You were the one that came up with this.
It was your thing.
No, that's not what I said.
The thing is, he
That's not what I
Also,
said.
you said it the first time. Just say it the same way.
the thing was, he didn't say it in character voice. Matt said it,
Yes.
not Carveth.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like,
Matt came up with it, not Carveth.
Yes.
God.
Exactly.
Okay. That's all right. I'll concede that.
I was very tired recording
Fair.
that, but yeah.
Honestly, yours I think came out as my favorite.
Oh, really?
The closed on Blor's days.
Closed on
kills
Blor's
me.
Day.
God, it's
so funny.
So fucking